Hey everyone, I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but here I am. What I went through changed my life forever, and I want to make sure you hear every detail. If you think you know someone, sometimes the truth is far darker than you could ever imagine. This is my story. It all started when I found out I was pregnant. At first, everything seemed normal. My husband, Jake, had always been charming, smart, ambitious, and attentive. Everyone thought he was the perfect partner. I thought I had everything I ever wanted. But slowly, subtle things began to change. At 4 months into my pregnancy, he started telling me how my growing bump would attract unwanted attention. He insisted that I cover up completely whenever I went outside. Outwardly, it looked like he was just being protective, but for me, it felt suffocating, like living under constant surveillance. He even installed a safety app on my phone, something he claimed was for both my well-being and the baby's. But it tracked every movement. He dictated what I could wear, how I could go out, even when I could see friends. Summer afternoons in long trench coats became normal, because according to him, I needed protection from people targeting pregnant women. I tried to convince myself it was just paternal instinct, that once the baby arrived, things would go back to normal. I was wrong. Soon, his behavior became increasingly secretive. He hid his search history, locked his office door, and developed strange habits that made me uneasy. At first, the jokes he made about my pregnancy were playful, slightly awkward but not alarming. But then the jokes took a darker turn, and it was clear his control over me was growing. I felt trapped, but I didn't know how to react. My pregnancy symptoms made everything harder: morning sickness, fatigue, the constant worry about my baby's health. I kept telling myself to stay calm, to keep the peace, and that somehow things would resolve themselves. And then came the moment I had been dreading, the day my water broke. Suddenly, all the control, all the tension, became real. I grabbed my phone to call my sister for support, and that's when Jake intervened. He told me everything was under control and that I didn't need to worry, but his presence was anything but comforting. The drive to the hospital felt endless. Pain was overwhelming, but I had no one to rely on emotionally. At least, no one I could trust. At the hospital, I wanted pain relief. I wanted comfort. But instead, I was met with manipulation. Jake presented a birth plan I had never seen before and insisted the staff follow it. I was terrified, confused, and helpless. Even though I couldn't fully process what was happening, I knew one thing. I needed to survive this experience, not just for myself, but for my baby. When we finally reached the hospital, I was in excruciating pain. Every nerve in my body felt like it was screaming, and all I wanted was some relief. I thought the medical staff would be my allies, that they would see how much I was struggling and help me. But Jake had other plans. He handed the nurses a birth plan I had never seen, insisting that it be followed exactly. According to him, I wanted a natural birth. My protests were ignored, and in that moment, I realized he was controlling not just my pregnancy, but even the most intimate moments of my life. Even in the chaos, I had to stay focused. I told myself, keep calm, survive, protect your baby. Pain blurred my thoughts, but my mind clung to that one goal: safety for myself and my child. After hours of labor, my baby was finally born. Relief washed over me, but so did exhaustion, both physical and emotional. Jake, seemingly drained, sat beside me. That's when I finally called my parents and sister. Their immediate support, just being there, holding me, gave me a sense of security I hadn't felt in months. In the following days, I stayed with my family, gradually beginning to realize the full extent of Jake's manipulation. He started harassing us online, posting false claims about my mental state, and trying to turn friends and relatives against me. But with my parents' guidance and the help of a lawyer, I began to document every interaction, every strange message, and every suspicious behavior. I also connected with a therapist who specialized in trauma and new mothers. She reminded me that my reactions were normal responses to extreme stress, and that wanting to protect my baby didn't make me paranoid. It made me vigilant. That validation was powerful. Over the next few weeks, Jake's attempts to intimidate me continued. Unexpected sightings in public, gifts sent to my parents' house, and messages that tried to manipulate the truth. But I stayed prepared. Every incident was recorded, every text saved, every visit documented. Slowly, I realized that documenting and controlling what I could gave me the power he was trying to take away. By the time my baby was a few months old, we had legal protections in place: supervised visitation, restraining orders, and a strong support system. And though anxiety didn't disappear overnight, I started to feel a sense of control returning. I was no longer just surviving. I was beginning to reclaim my life. By the time my daughter, Isadora, was 6 months old, the custody hearing was scheduled. I was terrified. What if the court didn't believe me? What if Jake got unsupervised access? The thought made my stomach churn. But I had prepared. With the help of my lawyer, Tara, we compiled every piece of evidence: messages, documentation of harassment, police reports, and testimonies from professionals who had witnessed Jake's controlling behavior. The day of the hearing, I dressed calmly and arrived with my parents for support. I didn't want to face him directly, and Tara had arranged a safe entry so I wouldn't have to. Inside the courtroom, Jake's lawyer tried to paint me as unstable, claiming my accounts of trauma were exaggerated. My anxiety spiked, but Tara presented everything clearly: evidence of harassment, psychological manipulation, and threats. The judge listened carefully, reviewing all the documentation. After tense hours, the verdict was in. Jake was granted supervised visitation once a month at a family center under court supervision. He would have to undergo psychological evaluation and parenting classes before any changes. Relief washed over me. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I knew Isadora would be safe. Even after the ruling, Jake tried to intimidate me in public spaces: the grocery store, the park, even outside my therapist's office. But each incident was documented. With the legal framework in place and my support system, I felt more prepared to handle his attempts. Therapy was crucial. My therapist, Dr. Hill, helped me navigate anxiety, establish routines, and regain confidence in my parenting. Support groups for new mothers became a lifeline, providing both advice and companionship. I realized that connecting with others who had survived controlling relationships was empowering. Over time, I rebuilt a sense of normalcy. I could take walks with Isadora, visit parks, and even socialize. Always mindful but no longer paralyzed by fear. Each day, I strengthened my boundaries and redefined what safety meant for me and my daughter. By documenting everything and taking legal action, I reclaimed my life. Jake could no longer manipulate or control me, and Isadora could grow up in an environment free from fear. Looking back, I understand how critical it was to trust my instincts, seek support, and act decisively. Friends, if there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this: never ignore your instincts and never stay silent in the face of control or abuse. Getting help, documenting your experiences, and surrounding yourself with supportive people can make all the difference. So, if this story resonated with you, please like this video, share it, and subscribe for more real-life stories. And remember, staying safe and protecting your loved ones is always the priority.